We'll be making one or so today in this video. Be aware we're going to be using flip fluids for this, so first I'm going to delete the default cube and all the stuff in the scene already. Next I'm going to gather some reference, as I like to do, look at different sword designs, find a blade shape I like, and make something similar to that, but not the same. I'm going to block out the shape by a plane, put my plane in. I'm going to extrude some edges out of the sword plane. And we're going to add some loop cuts where we want to add a bit more detail and stretch the blade out. And we just kind of do that until we get the shape we want with it. So I'm going to speed up this video here. I'm going to add a subsurface modifier to it now to make a bit more of a round shape with it. And I'm going to duplicate it, that way I have an extra if I make a mistake. I'm going to move on to making the handle now. Just to begin to model it, I'm going to use a plane again. And just model something I like. Using the same techniques you use for the blade. Okay, now I'm gonna add some depth to it by screwing out all the faces of the sword. And I'm gonna add a loop cut in the middle. Now we're gonna move on to making the sword stomp. Just by adding where the loop cut is in the middle and where the vertices are on the outside of the blade. Until we get something that looks sharp. I decided to adjust the handle a bit more. Okay, I'm gonna add the domain. This will be a cube. We're gonna make a rectangle. The domain is the thing that will contain all the water. So you'll make sure it's the size that you want it to be where the water will be contained. Because if you make it too small, the water will just get stuck on the boundaries. Make the blade a force field. Set the volume force. The volume force will make the water fill up the shape of the blade. Which is what we want to do with this water sword. I'm going to set the strength to -20, which will attract it to the blade. That way it doesn't go down. I'm going to set fall off to 3. That way not much water falls off when we spin it. Gravity scale will be 0.3, so we have a tiny bit of gravity. And I'm going to set the export animation. That way when it moves, it follows it. Okay, I'm gonna add an empty, which I'm gonna pair all the pieces of the sword to the empty. And this empty will allow us to move around the sword whilst I move in individual pieces. Then I'm gonna pair that empty to another empty, which will allow me to rotate the sword on the one axis while it going diagonally. Let's make it look better when we make it spin in the final animation. Now I'm going to add a hole in the handle where the water will come out. Which was set to outflow, which outflow means water comes out of it. Because this is going to move, we gotta set it to export animation. Okay, I'm gonna set the resolution to 200 for the test bake. Okay, I found out I need to make the inflow sense bigger. I'm gonna copy the shape at the bottom of the sword. I'm gonna extrude it out. Then I'm gonna add inflow onto that, where the water pops up through there. And I'm also gonna add a rectangle at the bottom to block the water from going down. Now I'm gonna add the camera. I'm gonna set it to a 90-degree angle. And kinda set it in front of the sword. I'm gonna add a sky texture to the background color. I'm gonna gonna set the render ends into cycles. I'm gonna add a plane for the ground, for the background. I'm gonna extrude it up, and I'm gonna bevel the middle of it to make that. And that would be the background. We'll set it to black for the final render later. I'm gonna add a plane, and I'm gonna extrude it out, make it into more of a rectangle to block the water, put it here at the bottom. I'm gonna set it to be an obstacle too. Now we're doing a test bake to see how it looks, see if I fix the issue. So it ends up setting the gravity to be the opposite, so it goes up instead of down. The only problem is now the water goes too far up. So I ended up setting so it's 0 gravity, so 0. And that seems to do the trick, as you will see here in this result. I'm going to add the materials for the water. This is just a Flip Fluids water soda. I decided to add a little bit of gravity. I set it to -3. That way it was a little bit, but not much. Now I set the width of the sword to 1. I do another test bake. I'll wait. this looks pretty good, the bake does. So, I'm gonna move on to setting up the final bake. I'm gonna turn the sword diagonally. I'm gonna rotate the empty on top of the one empty. So, this should be the one without parents, so the orphan. Because you wanna have the other one available to rotate. Oh, I'm gonna do the animation. Okay, now I'm gonna rotate it. Set so it's 360. That would be a full rotation. Keyframe it on the last frame on animation. I'm gonna change this later to 500. So keep that in mind. I'm gonna set the time scale to 0.8. I'm gonna set the fall off power to 2.64 on the sword settings, and the strength is 2213. Now I do another test bake. I decided to remove the cube that was blocking the water too. And make sure you press export the animated mess on the info objects, because if you do not, they will stand still, which when it rotates it won't look good. Which I did, so you can see how bad it looks. Okay, I decided to move the keyframe so it doesn't begin animation of it rotating until a bit later. I'm gonna set the record resolution to 450. Now do some final tweaks by adding the white water. I'm gonna set mineral energy to 0.03 in the white water settings. I'm gonna up these settings to 200. I'm going to set the resolution to 700. I'm going to change the end frame to 450. If you make a mistake on the bake, you can resume it from a certain frame up here in the settings. Every 50 frame there'll be a save like this made. But I'm going to set it back to 150. That way you don't have to restart from the beginning again. Okay, I'm going to move where the key frame is on the sword spin, because I want it to be a bit longer. So I'm going to move the key frame to 250. And I'm going to adjust the one at the end to be 450 instead too. Now I just hit resume bake, I'm going to get back to it. I'm going to make the background black, make the roughness 0, make a nice shiny background. I'm going to set the particle size to be 0.002 and the white water settings. But you're free to set whatever you want. I'm going to add the white water materials too, which are just different fluids ones, so you can find the settings here, as I'll show you here. Add them to all three materials. Now I'm going to muck with the sky texture a bit. I'm going to speed this up. I'm going to UV unwrap the handle and the other pieces of it. I'm going to speed this up. I'm going to make some pieces of leather for the sword handle. I'm going to use the cylinder. I'm going to get rid of the middle face. And then I'm going to add a shrink wrap modifier to it, which will make it stick to the sword more. And then I'm going to add a solidify on top of that. Then I'm going to apply the solidify modifier after I apply the shrink wrap and move it around a bit. Do that for a couple different pieces of leather on the sword handle. I'm going to find a metal texture to add to the sword handle. So I want a nice polished metal look to the sword handle. And for the leather handles, I'm just going to find a leather texture for that. I'm going to unwrap the pieces of leather. For a minute to pass Blender by loading the texture. Water grips one of the sides of the domain, so I need to increase the size of it. So I'm just going to do that now. Then I hit bake again, and rebake the same simulation, with the changes of the domain made. Okay, so these are the final settings I used in the simulation, and this is the one for the domain. I set the resolution to 700 for the final bake. I set the timescale to 0.9. For the weld settings, I changed the scale to 2 to make the animation a bit slower, so if you start going faster, if you can change that, or the timescale. I changed the gravity to 0.3 in the z-axis. That way there's not as much gravity in the scene. For white water, I enabled it, then I changed the rate to 200 in wave casting. I changed the other one down here for that too. New energy 0.08. That way there's a bit more white water in the render. Okay, now for the weld settings. Okay, we're gonna move on to the sword now for the final settings in that. I set the strength to -22, so 0.13. I set the width to 1. Gravity scale 0. Fallout power 2.64. Export animated mess because it moves. And those are the final settings I used on it. Okay, I also made this in spin. And I ended up making it 500 frames instead of 450. But I keyframed it on the one axis, on the one empty on the inside. I begin spinning at 250 to 450. Now that the simulation's done, I'm going to move on to adjusting the lighting and materials. This is going to take a while, so I'm going to speed this up quite a bit. I'm going to run to the final scene now. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Like the video.